everyone. Good morning, good evening from whichever part of the world you're listening into the podcast. Welcome to another episode of the GenAI CIO Podcast, where every week Shiva and I connect to update you, bring the latest and the greatest from the world of GenAI and how, most importantly, it can help within your business across the globe, right? So I've been joined in by Shiva, who's the founder for Lizer, where they're actually building a lot of framework and agents on GenAI. Thanks, Shiva, for joining in. Rishabh this side, founder and CBO for GoML, where we are building very custom applications, domain-focused applications on GenAI. And as we get tuned into another episode of the podcast, right, there are certain updates that we definitely have. And I'll probably get started with one very interesting update. Although from consumability perspective, I'm not sure, Shiva, how this is going to affect, especially as CIOs or probably the avid business users. But OpenAI has, honestly, for the first time, commercially launched a very domain-focused or a use case-focused model, right? So they've launched something called as ChatGPT EDU. And what they claim is that this is very focused towards the universities and the schools across, right? What does this mean? While it is not a fine-tuned model, right, that they've actually built leveraging the educational data, but what at least they claim is that this is a very specialized data, model that they've actually built on top of GPT-4o, right? What does it do? And again, these are the claims that I've read because this is still yet not released, right, for public consumability. And number two, they claim that this will be commercially available for universities. But what does it do? It is focused towards reasoning and mathematical capabilities, summarization, text interpretability. These are the four capabilities that they claim to bring on the board. And how this can benefit universities, right, is again, especially on the research side, right, where they can actually continue to feed research, very detailed and very deep research into some of these, into probably this model. And this model actually comes back with citations, summarizations, anecdotes on top of those research and so on and so forth, right? So that's the usability that they've actually built on top of it. The initial, if I probably go back to the industry, there was another model that Google had launched, which was called Socrates, right, which was more focused towards educational institutions. So if I probably compare both of these, Socrates from Google was more focused just towards mathematical problem solving. But what ChatGPT or OpenAI has attempted over here is give a more generalized models for the educational institutions, right? So good update. The only, feedback
is it like a safe model? Are they kind of getting into the safetiness of the whole model?
Absolutely. One thing I really missed covering, Shiva, is that they've actually, obviously, one is focused towards use cases within the universities, but they've also enhanced security. What they claim, they claim in the enterprise version as well, right? That it's more secure, more available, or more ready for enterprises. That's what they claim over here as well. They've not released the pricing model for it yet, but very clearly they've stated that this is going to be a commercially available model specifically for universities, right?
It makes sense, right? Because if you see, last year during summer, the ChatGPT revenue dropped by as much as 20%, and people were able to immediately correlate the ChatGPT usage with the schools. Were off during that time, so they were able to immediately correlate these two. So from that perspective, I think it's a good move by OpenAI. I'm not sure if this will benefit other industries. Healthcare probably could be a big industry that they might go after. But yeah, it shows at least their intention. Where are they moving?
So one thing, absolutely right, Shiva, as you mentioned, probably they might start focusing on building very industry-focused use cases across, maybe, right? That's the strategy that they're getting into. But what is not clear primarily is, not clear, sorry, as I started and how I started this news update, it's not a fine-tuned model for universities, right? So they're not bringing any domain focus. The only thing that they've actually
safety exactly. And
adaptability, more ready for universities, etc. That's just use cases.
But does it do better math compared to the GPT-4o model?
Yes. That's what the claim again is, that it actually, on top of the GPT-4 model, it has better summarization, text interpretation, mathematical and reasoning capabilities.
Makes sense. Okay, cool.
All right, from OpenAI to Google, and as always, Google has been in news for good and bad reasons. Like we first cover the bad. So, as our viewers might, our listeners might be aware, Google launched something called as AI Overviews, right? And I'm not
Hmm.
sure, Shiva, if you've tried it out, but what AI
No,
Overviews does is, uh,
I
uh,
did see. Is it what appears when you search for something? Oh, okay, okay.
exactly.
I
So,
didn't
what
even
they've done
notice. I
is,
didn't even notice. Yeah.
even honestly speaking, even I did not because I'm so used to probably getting into the links and then probably because I want to probably curate the list of links that I want to go through, right? So what they've done is when you search a query along with the links etc that you get, feeling lucky that they were functionality that they were actually giving, they summarize the overall results, right, in probably 4 to 5 lines at the top on the top, right? So while obviously a very good feature if you really look at it, because if you're in a hurry and you probably just want a very initial understanding of the search output, it's a very good feature to give. But as usual, what has happened this time with Google again is uh, that the output that the users have been getting in many of these use cases is not really good, right?
Hmm.
So again, this is something that I've noticed, right, Shiva, is honestly speaking, I don't think so. It's the model's fault, right? It's the way the use
I
cases are or the search
I
happens.
remember. I remember. I think they were comparing with Perplexity, isn't it? That particular feature with
It's
Perplexity. Is this? Oh,
exactly.
okay.
It was a whole news that now Perplexity is gone, right? What's the future of Perplexity
Ah,
with Google
yeah.
bringing this into, right? If you remember that,
Exactly. Yeah,
comparison.
I remember. I do
But
remember that. Yeah.
and this is just my observation, right? What I've seen. While obviously there are multiple negative feedbacks around it. AI overviews when you're doing a direct search, like probably show me top 10 getaways from New York for weekend, right? It probably gives a brilliant summary because it's just a factual information, right? But where probably it's failing is when I'm asking derivative questions, like probably for example, uh, I have XYZ ingredients and what I can probably make from them, right? And that's where it actually fails. And one of the instances that one of the users had actually given, how do I ensure that the veggies on my pizza do not slip away, right? And
Hmm.
the AI's summarization had given use glue to fix it, right? Because it's not able to get context, right? That's the challenge, right? Another
Use
issue
glue to
was
fix it. Okay.
exactly right. And another issue was because since it's actually it's again using web data, right? Web based data. So when you are getting into links, you can, as a human, obviously, you can decide what information to use, what not to use. But the model is not able to do that. So in one of the use cases where the user had asked is who's the first, Muslim president, right, of United States, and it actually said, Obama, because that's a myth that was floating around. So you probably got that from one of the myth links, and it actually just stated over there, right? So my this is just my theory. What it's able to give, right, is good summarization of factual information, very direct facts that I'm asking. But when it comes to derivative, etc., it's not able to, summarize well. Now, obviously, as usual, what Google has said is that there are multiple failures in the model, and they've accepted it, right?
Uh,
But
I'm really trying to think in this whole generative AI. I would say the last 1 year. What did Google get right? Did they
the
get anything
demos
right?
in their IO.
Probably Gemma too.
Yeah, I mean, probably from the early stage models perspective, I agree, Shiva. And I think one
Hmm.
one good work that they're also doing is because they're using MedPalm, right, in one of our healthcare use cases, right? Well, I'll not say it's probably one of
Hmm.
the perfect models. Like we find Open Biolama to be better. So some of these
Yeah.
domain-specific use cases they're definitely solving, right? But I think in the catch-up game, what's happening, and the same thing happened with Gemini Images, right? It was giving very, very, like very biased
Yeah.
results,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
had to withdraw it,
Not
if you
not just
remember.
by inaccurate results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this case also, what they've done now is while they've not withdrawn the feature altogether, but what they've done is in very critical situations, like if you're searching anything which is medical report or healthcare related, right, or breaking news related, they're not going to give this, right? But in probably generic test search results, they're going to give it, right? So again, while it's a brilliant feature, but again, a feedback to Google is that they really need to test out their features better before they release it to the market, not just a play catch-up game, right?
Yeah. I mean, because the whole thing that you just described seems to be something that OpenAI can do in its sleep, but Google had to take so much effort and release, and still it turns to be a dud. That's interesting.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Right, it's the catch-up game, probably Shiva, which probably is really hitting them hard, right? But yeah, I mean, again, let's see how they overcome this another failure, or probably I will not call it a failure, but probably a step back, a setback in their overall strategy, right?
I mean, literally, if you see AWS and Google are playing the catch up game, and Microsoft could have been doing the same if not for the strategic partnership that they cracked. So with OpenAI,
So
other
and see one thing which I probably I believe is that they're actually not they're making the strategy as they're going ahead, right? And like one instance probably to give is that they paid a couple of months ago they paid Reddit $60 million, stating that they're going to use Reddit data to probably train these models. It's actually the inferencing that they've built. And just after this fiasco, they've stated that they're not going to use blog-based data for the summarization. They're just going to use factual information, right? So, I mean, did they think about Reddit information when they were doing that? They did not. After
they
using it,
did
they
not.
realized that the systems are biased. I mean, you cannot use opinions to probably build these systems, right? Because they're completely biased, incorrect, and so on and so forth, right? So yeah, I
Also
mean,
the also the fake images, like you said, the fake screenshots and fake images, even
exactly.
though they are like, yeah,
Exactly, right. So yeah, so I'm all. I mean, again, while a behemoth, but I think at this time they're thinking, not thinking long term, but they're thinking as they're going ahead, right? So, all right. Moving on.
what next?
Another update. See, obviously, all of us have leverage to certain extent, LLMs for reasoning capabilities. But one thing that people who have leverage for reasoning capabilities, right, is that without external stimulus or external guidance, the large language models generally struggle with reasoning, right? And with probably very simpler reasoning, like probably something which is very straightforward for you and me, Shiva, which is, let's take example, all dogs are animals, right? And
Hmm.
Rishabh is a dog, right? Is Rishabh an animal, right? For you and me, it's very straightforward, yes, right? But what happens is that without an external stimulus, most of your LLMs struggle in these type of information.
Yeah.
So what has happened is that there is a new framework that has been tested out, which is called symbolic chain of thought, right? Or probably in shorter term, SymbCoT, right? Now, what it actually does is it actually tries to leverage the symbols that we generally use for our reasoning capabilities, right, to come up with the solutions for such questions, right? And
Hmm.
let's go back to probably how we were solving it. When I was preparing for CAT, right, Shiva, I used Venn diagrams heavily. I'm pretty sure you would have used it during your preparation as well, right, for solving
Yeah.
these use cases, right? So that's what this model does, right? It actually now combines those symbols, right? So probably A equal to B, B equal to C is A equal to C, right? So generally, it will not leverage symbols, right? But now probably with this framework, it probably is bringing in that terminology that A equal to B, B equal to C. So A equal to B equal to C, A equal to C, right? So it's a combination of your symbols within your prompts, and it's able to probably and they've actually seen a good amount of accuracy when they've tested this out on GPT-4. They've seen a good amount of accuracy for your reasoning specific questions, right? So that's a good framework, right? It's almost close to 22.08% improvement on GPT-4 models that they've seen. So good framework, not yet tried out, obviously, but a good update.
So what happens is instead of using, because without the symbol, it'll be just the text, isn't it? Just the text
Exactly.
as is. It's gonna look at the words and try and tokenize it and do the similarity search. But here, it is assigning a value, like a variable, like a symbol, sorry, and that becomes a unique identifier, so that because it's a symbol, then the large language model doesn't confuse. Because with a symbol, the similarity search is going to be highly accurate, because it's a unique symbol, and that is how they are solving the issue. Oh, that's a pretty
Exactly.
that's a pretty interesting move, actually. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Exactly. This is how we get closer to AGI, right, Shiva? But yeah, I mean,
I don't want to
I'm
get
just
into
kidding.
that.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
And just on a lighter note, right? I think, and I was probably seeing this someone screenshot, right, for the coding problem. And I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure if that's true or not, but just on a very lighter note, on GPT-4, someone was trying to say this code is incorrect. And GPT-4 responded saying it worked on my machine. And someone
Wow,
responded,
really?
okay, that's it. Right. So I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just playing on a very
No,
lighter note.
yeah, no. Even if it happened, I don't know. Yeah, it's okay. Anyway, let's see. We cannot.
That's when we achieve AGI, right? Yeah. All right. Moving on to again, as I mentioned, probably Google is in news for good and bad. So since we already covered bad, let's come to the good part. So what Google has actually done is they've actually tested out something that helps us. At least the initial test helped reduce hallucinations heavily by over 30%, right? So they've launched something called as Agree, which is actually a short form for adaptation for grounding enhancement, right? Uh, what does it do, right? All of us have struggled with hallucination, right? People who have actually leveraged LLM for use cases, actual enterprise-based use cases, right? While we've leveraged multiple areas, few short learning, chain of thought, summarization, chain of density, and so on and so forth, right? RAG, obviously, which is the most powerful tool. What Google has tried out is they leverage very, very curated data set to fine tune the model, right, to begin with, right? And they leverage this data set, right, to respond to initial set of queries, right? So just take an example that you have a education or a very, very focused, class 10 or mathematics data set, and you're fine tuning a model on that. Now, for the next some time, you're going to ask questions related to that very specific data set, right? And the model will only respond from that data set. So it grounds its responses to that data set. And not only that, it actually gives you citations as well from that data set, right? But both the things don't happen suddenly. So one side or probably one part is just responding to these questions. And there's another part that leverages NLP to now go through this data set and for that particular response gets you the citation from that data set, right? They test this out till the time the model has achieved really high amount of accuracy. And then they generalize this onto a larger data set, this whole intel that they've actually built on the model, the fine-tuned model, right? And they
Okay.
tested this out with text bison, and they tested this out with Llama 2 13B model on the Wikipedia
Okay.
dataset. And the amount of
Okay.
hallucination that they were able to reduce with these text baseline models was close to 30%, right? So,
Wow.
while obviously this will continue because reducing hallucinations by 30% doesn't solve the problem, right? But this is a good technique because it doesn't involve you to probably
No, why don't,
continuously.
why don't, why don't, why do you think it doesn't solve the problem?
Shiva, and I'm focusing more from enterprise use cases when we work, right? And especially in the financial services manufacturing sector that we work. The accuracy that the customers, especially so customers are okay not getting information, right? Especially in healthcare, financial services, right? But whenever you provide information, it needs to be at least 99% accurate. That's the demand from our healthcare customers, period, right? So what I'm saying is from the perspective that I'm seeing from the still 30% reduction is still not, an acceptable reduction. But why, this, I'm really intrigued by this is because generally, if I start working on a use case, there's a lot of, efforts that go after building the use case into reducing the hallucinations, right? But with this methodology, during the build phase itself, you're able to cater to it, right? When you generalize that model to the larger data set, right? So that's why I'm very intrigued about this particular thing.
Got it. Okay. Okay. No, I think probably once, at least they are on this path, they should not stop the things or experiments. They should just continue on this path. Let's see what happens. Okay.
Absolutely. I think what they've stated is they're going to try this out now with larger data sets and probably multiple sets of models. Right. Even larger models like Llama 3 and so on, which are trained on larger. So hopefully looking forward. All right.
What?
Moving to Microsoft, as most of our listeners would know, Microsoft launched something called as Recall AI, right? Which is kind of, if I say, for lack of better word, is like your personal assistant, right, on your Windows laptops, right? What
Hmm.
does Recall AI do? Is it captures your complete history, complete, logs of your user interactions, right? And builds on top of it, right? Becomes more intelligent and helps you across your tasks within your, on your Windows desktops or Windows machines, right? So let's say probably, you opened up an email, you responded to an email, you created a
So that's
PowerPoint,
so.
right? You
So
visited certain websites, etc.
isn't this directly competing with the rewind tool that Dan Siroker launched a few months back.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, I mean, for lack of a better word, yes, directly competing, yes. But
Correct, because
one
I
thing,
remember a tweet that was made by Dan where yeah, I remember now. I can correlate. So that is recall, which is it's like memory, right?
exactly,
Like
ex
right, okay, whatever you see, whatever you operate on your system, it kind of stood. Okay, got it. Okay.
exactly, right? But here's the catch, right, Shiva? Well, obviously they claim that everything is stored locally in your laptop, right? It's not sent to the cloud for training the model and so on and so forth, right? But what people have, highlighted primarily from the recalls data capture or historical capture piece. While again, just on a side note, it doesn't capture any of your incognito. You still have that control that private browsing, incognito browsing, etc. Will still be kept out of this recordings, right? But one thing that they've really not, which they're now corrected by the way, is that it's enabled by default, right? So
Hmm.
you don't have like today. If I probably install an updated Windows version, it will be enabled by default, and I might not really know about it, right?
Yeah.
So that's one
Yeah.
definitely data security breach that they've corrected now. But most importantly, right, the use case or where probably it's really coming out as a concern for users is that there's at no point, right, Microsoft has taken consent for capturing user data, right? Even if it's been
Wow.
stored, and Microsoft
No,
defense
no,
is
no, but I think no, but I think they do that at the very beginning, isn't it? When you install their product, when you install their
so.
OS for the very first time, don't they do it at that level, at that moment?
So, so it's again, right, Shiva, you've got like millions of words in that contract, and so it's enabled
Yeah,
by default. It never asks you what do you want
yeah.
to enable, right? So
I
it
mean, in
actually is
Microsoft's defense,
violating the universal principle.
no, but in Microsoft's defense, they have this. They could defend.
By the way,
Yeah.
that's how Slack does it, right? If you go and look at Slack's agreement or probably user terms and conditions, it states that your data is being captured. If you don't want it captured, opt out on our website. So,
Wow.
I mean, I was reading it. I was really appalled by the way they're capturing data, right? But that's what's happening. They've now corrected it, right, after this massive, issue across. But while probably it might,
And then we could, and then we crib about OpenAI using all our data to train, right? Like we have, I mean, our data is already out there with almost everyone. Okay.
correct. But I see, I think this is where, and I was attending a conference with Amazon, right? And Amazon's Code Whisperer, which is equivalent to Copilot, has been converted into Q, right? And I was actually attending a conference that was speaking about Q. And this is how the monetization has started, right? So what
Hmm.
Q now says is Q for developers, which is for free. You
Hmm.
continue to use it, but your data would be used for training the model. If you don't want your
Hmm.
data to be used for training, then you buy the business licenses. Q for business.
Makes sense.
Right? So even that's what even ChatGPT, Enterprise, etc. say, right? That your data, once you purchase, let's say, license, etc., will not be used, right? So I think honestly, this will become a monetization strategy as well for organization. But coming back to Microsoft, so this is a major, flaw that they had, which they never checked, and this resulted in a huge, conspiracy in the whole recall feature, right? So they had to probably withdraw this now, probably user consent, so they had to change that whole strategy, right? So a big flaw again, but let's see how this actually changes their overall strategy.
Okay. All right. And
All
finally,
right,
we
what
have
next?
Elon Musk again. Elon has dropped this suit, the one that uh, he was going after Sam Altman and OpenAI for the whole open source, closed source saga, for-profit, non-profit saga as well. There are a lot of theories on why he dropped it, but there is no explanation from him yet on why he dropped the whole lawsuit. Probably on a funny note, people were commenting that now that he secured $6 billion from Sequoia, it's not a big deal anymore. His ego is kind of met. Just all sorts of funny memes are going around. But yeah, probably at some point in time he might open up and say why he did that if he's not done that already by the time we're recording this. So that's the latest news. I mean, at least Sam Altman has
So
one less headache. Yeah.
But this very well coincides with, as you rightly mentioned, right, the $6 billion check that he's gotten for Grok, building Grok, right, at X. And this is something that
Yeah.
Shiva, you and I were discussing in one of our previous podcasts. Is that this whole saga around AI safety, etc. Is it really overbuilt? And people have already lost case like Ilyas Satskavar and then like right, Jen like right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
very well coincides with what he's trying to do with Grok, right? But another, point to this is that he's actually dropped this without prejudice. What does that mean is that at any point, he can, go back and file the suit, and the hearing will start from wherever they had dropped the last time, right? He's
Oh,
not withdrawn the use case completely. He's just, dropped it without prejudice. I mean, it's a legal term,
got it.
which means that
Got it.
he can go anytime and file it, right? So, I mean, he's just keeping these guys topsy-turvy or probably on the edge. But again, very well coincides with
No,
his
I
own
don't.
venture and his own
I
ambitions.
don't. I don't think there is any. I don't think there's any edge or something that these guys are on. Actually, I think
Correct.
the Middle East government is completely believing in what Sam could do, and no, I don't think they at least see a threat here
At,
in this whole thing.
at least in Elon Musk's mind, right? But again, I mean, I'm just really curious on what they build on Grok and how open source that is, right? Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
All right. That's pretty much for this week. And there's a very nice breeze coming in from the marina from Shiva's site. Nice view, Shiva, by the way. But thanks everyone for joining in. We'll continue to bring these updates for you. And next week, I think let's cover what's happening with OpenAI and Apple. Right. But thanks everyone for joining in. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Take care. See you.